Hey guys, so I'm trying something new. I am sitting in a different location because I think the lighting will be a little bit better in this area, but we will see. I hope that the images are coming out a little bit better because I did upgrade my camera, if you have not figured that out already. So I'm gonna work with this. We're gonna see if this is a better lighting setup. I also did a thing that I don't normally do, and I have notes for today's video. I have a plan, which is more than I've had in a long time. I also have a lot more energy, which I can only presume is because I have had about 3 cups of coffee and my pills are working. So when your medication works, your personality comes out. That is all I'm saying. So I'm gonna dive right into this. Today I wanted to do another writing vlog-ish thing and talk about several different things: the read-through, rewriting, redrafting, NaNoWriMo, and just the current state of my main project at the moment. So if you have not been following me for a while, I am a writer. I have been working on a few writing projects for the last few years. There is one project in particular that I am still just sort of cracking at and trying to get into a state that I consider worthy of querying agents, and that is still not it. I am currently rereading that draft, which was draft 5, going into draft 6, and right now it's gone through several betas. I've gone through 3 phases of beta reads throughout different drafts. This will be the 3rd round of beta readings, and I got back feedback from 2 of my readers. I always kind of put my feelers out for more than 2 readers, and I got feedback from 2 of them, which is great because sometimes people drop out or they just don't have the time, or one person disappeared. So I never heard from that person again, and despite multiple attempts at contacting them, I have still heard nothing. So I kind of gave up on that one and hope that they didn't do something terrible. I'm paranoid sometimes. I don't know, but she disappeared and I never heard from her again. So that's that. But the draft as it stands is not horrifying, but I have learned a few things about myself over the years, and one of the things that I know for a fact is that when I am not well physically and mentally, I am kind of not a great writer. And the last year as a whole, and when I think of years, I think of academic years rather than year, so I don't necessarily say like January to January. For me, a year is more like July to July almost. I've grown up in academia for too long, and I just associate years with that. So when I say year, I mean from like the previous July to around now. It has not been great for me health-wise, and I basically lived with constant migraines for the last year. I'm not going to go into the story because I've already done that. If you want to know more about my health issues, I have a series on my hypothyroidism, but that threw off all manner of things in my body, and among them my hormones, and that led to constant migraines. So I've had migraines for basically a whole year. That made it difficult to think. On top of that, I had a lot of brain fog, I had a lot of difficulty concentrating, and I was a little depressed. There were a lot of things that happened last year at work, in life, that shook me up emotionally, and it was just not a good year for writing. And my writing and my efforts to write a new draft of a new story show that. This draft, as I'm reading it, I see that I made giant sweeping cuts in an effort to tighten the plot, and what I see now are just a bunch of holes because I cut out way too much characterization, I cut out way too much world building, I cut out way too much backstory in an effort to show more rather than tell more, and I kind of just undermined all my efforts. So as I read this draft, I see that there are gaping holes, that my plot needs further development because what I did was essentially decimate entire sections of it, and I almost created a shell of a structure, which is good because now I can work with it and rework it, and I am considering just rewriting fairly large portions of it. There are at least 8 chapters that I have identified as more than likely at least 90% of it has to be rewritten because it's not doing what I want them to do. And there comes a point when I ask myself, you know, when will it be enough? And I don't know, I haven't gotten there yet. So I think that's something that a lot of writers struggle with, is figuring out, when are you done drafting? I know that this is not done. I have not finished drafting for this novel. This will be draft 6. There will probably be a few more drafts. If I can get a plot that I'm satisfied with, then I can work on the details. But until I get an overall story that I feel good about, I will not focus on the little things, because it's pointless. If I'm going to be cutting entire chapters out, there's no sense in worrying about the minutia of it. So at this point, it is not perfect, but it's what I have to work with. I also just dropped my notes. Where did I put them? Okay. I had notes. So my read through was just something that I held off on because I wasn't quite ready for this. I decided to work on a different project and gave that up after about 3 months of struggling with it because it was not going in the right direction. I have this idea, I know where I want it to go, and it just wasn't coming out right. So I consider that a writing exercise. Every bit of writing is another way of gaining experience, but there also comes a point when I have to realize that I am not doing what I want to do. I wasn't feeling that story. It's a story that I feel passionate about, but as it was coming out, it just wasn't right. So I will come back to it, but right now I wrote about 15 chapters and set it aside because I knew at that point that I was pushing along and struggling with it and not loving it. I love the idea of it, I don't like what I was writing. So I need to come back to that with a fresh mind. And I think part of the reason that I wasn't getting into it was, one, the same health issues that I just discussed, which are getting better now. And two, just that I was constantly thinking about this other project as I was trying to work on that one. So I realized that the time had come for me to reread this. I had put it off long enough. I was a little scared of it. I was waiting for the beta feedback. I was able to read that, absorb that, and move on. So at this point, I'm still reading. I have about 7 chapters left to go. And the read-through has been quick. It's been unlike any other read-through I have done because I know at this point that if I take copious notes, I never follow them. I just need to get a sense of the story and a sense of each chapter and those major scenes that need to be rewritten because that's how I work best. And this has just been discovered through trial and error. I've tried multiple methods of read-throughs and revising and revision planning, and this seems to work the best for me, especially at this point in this particular story. That's something that every writer has to discover for themselves, and everybody writes it a little bit differently. I've tried note cards, I've tried annotating the drafts, I've tried taking digital notes. At this point, it's a combination of writing right on the draft and taking note cards, but mostly as pointers rather than detailed note cards. So in each note card, I kind of like outline the chapter with the major points, like this is what has to happen in this chapter, and this is what I need to do to fix it. So when I go through these note cards, I'm going to then outline them chapter by chapter and create sort of like just a structure plan where I tell myself these are the things that have to happen, these are the chapters I want to just fully rewrite, these are the ones I need to revise, and these are the ones that will need to be revised based on rewrites. So if that makes sense, some things will affect others, obviously, because if I change one major plot element, other things will have to change. So there's a mix of all 3 of them interspersed throughout the story as far as chapters that I need to work on. And it's going to take a while, but in an effort to get enthusiastic about this, because this particular novel that I'm working on was originally drafted and just created during a NaNoWriMo, I have decided to participate in NaNoWriMo after all, even though it will not be a straight draft. I will be doing it. I signed up already. I also signed up to use my library as a Come Right In center, so I'm hoping to keep myself driven and enthusiastic about the revision process. I always have a harder time revising than drafting, as many writers do, because there's that shiny new, you know, all the things, just right feeling when it comes to writing a new draft, and revising sucks. It's tedious. It requires you to continue immersing yourself in this. This is something I experienced when I was In grad school, when I wrote my thesis, my thesis director told me, you're going to be sick and tired of this by the end of it, so pick something that you like. Because if you pick something that you hate from the start, you're never going to get through it. And it's the same thing with writing a novel. If you're not feeling the story, it just becomes laborious and laborious, whatever. I can't pronounce things today. So I love this story. I hate the process, but I need to get through it in order to make it good. Or at least as good as it's going to get. And that's what we're gonna do. So right now, this has so far been my fastest read through ever. I'm gonna keep at it. I should be done by this weekend. And then I'm going to create my NaNoPrep outline. And I don't plan on finishing the revisions during November, but I would like to at least get the major chapters that need to be rewritten done. I would like to at least take that challenge upon myself, just to rewrite the chapters that need to be completely overhauled first, and then work my way through all the other chapters over time. It won't be a 50,000 word thing. I have a lot of words that need to be added back. I have an entire point of view that needs to be added back. I removed it during the last draft because, as I said, I was having a hard time concentrating. I clearly was not thinking well about what I was doing, and I cut out an entire point of view character. That needs to come back. The story just makes more sense with that character there, and it's important, and right now it feels like something is missing, so I need to add that back. I need to strengthen my character development. Again, I cut out way too much. I don't know why I did this. I mean, I sort of do know, because I was trying to focus on the idea of, you know, keeping the pace moving, keep the pace moving, keep it going, and I did not really do a good job of doing that, admittedly. So I'm gonna go back and fix that and keep it going as long as I can, and until it's done and I can rejoice for like a day, because that's always what happens with drafting. You get excited that it's done, and then you know that more will have to happen. So that's my plan. I am going to also do something completely different this time around, and I'm going to use Microsoft Word. I originally wrote this novel in Microsoft Word, and then I started using Scrivener. I don't have the Mac version of Scrivener, so it's not as powerful for editing, so I'm going to go back to Word. I think it will make this process easier, and I will be able to see those changes, and I will be able to go back without having to rely on snapshots. So I'm going to try something completely different, and I'm going to just work at it. I have briefly thought of just rewriting most of it. That is still up in the air. That's still an option. Everything after chapter 10, maybe I will just rewrite until a certain point, but I don't know. That's still to be determined, and we'll see how I feel about it once I create that outline. So that's my plan. I'm gonna do NaNoWriMo. It won't be perfect, but it will be done. And I will continue plotting out this, and hopefully have something soon, maybe. But if you guys are also working on a project, if you're gonna do NaNoWriMo, if you'd like to just chat and, you know, share tragic stories about drafting, feel free to drop me a comment down below, or you can also tweet me at booknerdcatlady, because I do respond to tweets if you send me a message, or just whatever it is that you have to do on Twitter to send people messages. I'm not the greatest at it, but I will reply. So wish me luck, and I'll talk to you guys later, and good luck if you're doing your own NaNoWriMo. Bye.